What's up, guys? Brett Okamoto from ESPN, and it is that time of the week, UFC Best Bets, and it's a big one, UFC 266. I'm actually in the Apex already. We're taping this on a Wednesday. I'm here for Media Day to talk to all of the athletes at UFC 266. James Krause joins us from Kansas City still, has not made his way to Las Vegas yet, but I believe he will sometime today.
Yep.
He's still in Kansas City right now. And then Nick Kalikas, he is always in Vegas over there at Circus Sports, running the book over there. Got a lot to talk about, guys, at UFC 266. But before we do, take a quick look back, as we always do, to last week. Nick gave us a few dogs. He gave us 2 dogs and said, hey, put money on both of them. If one hits, you're going to end up plus money. If both hit, you're going to have a really great night. It looked like potentially both were going to hit. It was in the realm of possibility. It didn't, but you did get one. So you did end up on the plus side. And then James had a little bit of bad luck. Both of his fights fell through. But if you were watching him on Instagram, as you should, he gave off a couple extra picks. And I believe both of those hit. Correct, James? They don't go on the official scorecard. They do not go on the official scorecard. We ain't counting those. But make sure you're following Krause to get all of the up-to-date betting info. He's good for it. So
I gave two over 1.5 for Buckley Arroyo and Anthony Smith minus 160. Easy work on both of them. James
is so hot. He's just handing out winners in his free time when he's not even asked to do so. That's this guy. So let's get to UFC 266. I wrote an article that said, what are the top 10 fights I'm looking for the rest of the year? This was number 1. And I won't go into a lot about why. Basically, I think Volkanovski is just an absolute stud. He's a professional. He checks off all the boxes. He just makes sure that everything is on point. But Brian Ortega, we've seen him one time over the last 2.5 years, but he might be the best featherweight because he made it to a title fight against Max Holloway. Obviously had a lot of deficiencies, but made necessary changes and then looked great against Korean Zombie. So I am fascinated by this fight. Volkanovski minus 175. When I looked at it this morning, Brian Ortega coming back at plus 150. James, I just want to toss it to you. Just general thoughts on the fight and where the line is at.
So from a fan perspective, obviously I love this fight. Ortega's made all the necessary changes to seemingly have what it takes to be a world champion. Then you have Volkanovski, somebody that's beat Max Holloway twice, named the last guy that's done that, which is pretty incredible in itself. But when I look at this from a betting perspective, I'm looking at a guy that's, styles make fights, right? So this doesn't mean anything. This is where my head is. I look at a guy that's beat Max Holloway twice to a guy that got destroyed by Max Holloway. And I know that this is MMA math and it never makes sense, but I take those things into consideration because Ortega has gotten much better since then. But then I look at a guy like Volkanovski, who's just really, we're not talking about, it's just not just Holloway. He dusted Chad Mendez. Like, he's beat some really, really good guys. And when I can get him at minus 160, minus 170, I think I've seen 160 as low as that. It's just really hard to bet against the guy that beat Max Holloway twice if I can get him at minus 160. You know what I mean? It's really hard to bet against that. So for me, from a betting perspective, I did play and I would play Volkanovski just for the price, to get a guy that's been so dominant as champion, to get a price like that. However, I do like Ortega. I think he's made a lot of improvements, but I don't know if it's enough. He's got a high danger factor, but Volkanovski is the complete package. He can grapple, he can wrestle, he hits hard, he's durable, great endurance. He's got it all. You know what I mean? And I like that. We talk about betting on consistent fighters when we're from a betting perspective. Volkanovski is one of those guys for me.
Nick, James said something in there about he sees value on Volkanovski, and he outlined the reasons why. I want to get your take on, is there value on Volkanovski? And the reason I'm looking at it is because I believe he was an underdog both times to Max Holloway, right? Even after he beat him the first time, he's still an underdog. And so is the betting market now giving him the respect? Is this line where it should be? Are they over adjusting to it where it's higher than it should be? Are they still not giving him respect? I honestly don't know the answer to that. What do you think about this line?
I think he is probably getting a little bit too much respect at this point. But make no mistake, a lot of people don't believe he beat Holloway the last time. So I think in people's minds, Holloway's still the rightful featherweight champion, which I don't think is the proper thing to do or the proper way to think, because I think Volkanovski, even if it was a tight fight, he won that fight on the scorecards, so he's the deserving champion. But I still think there's some of that hangover kind of floating around him as well. So that's not really a good thing. So he gets some respect for winning those fights, but I think in the back of people's minds, they're still questioning that last Holloway fight. But what James just said, I don't know. I'm not so sure. I can understand it. He is a total package. Volkanovski has it all. There's no doubt about it. But at this price, Ortega continues to improve, man. We've seen it time and time again. And I think if he continues to improve at the level he has, this is going to be really close, even in the striking department. I mean, the analytics are all pointing towards Volkanovski in this spot for sure. But I think the analytics sometimes don't factor everything in, don't factor the improvements that he's making. And I think since the camp change, since he's kind of adapted in his style and way of training, it's worked, man. I think this guy is definitely getting better.
James, you were shaking your head. Why can't Brian Ortega win this striking battle?
I don't want to say he can't. That's definitely not what when I shook my head, that's definitely not what I meant. But you're talking about a guy, I mean, strictly from a striking standpoint, Holloway was not even close. I mean, it was a shutout, man. It was a beating. Like, Holloway dusted him. It wasn't even close, finished him. And then Volkanovski has shown that he can strike with the elite strikers. Like, for me, I feel like there's still blatant disrespect on him, to be honest with you. And you can argue that Holloway beat him the second time. Okay, what about the first time? Well, it was close then too, but how many times are we going to discredit this dude before? Like, I love Max Holloway. He's great. And I think both those fights were really close. Even if he lost both of those fights, to me, when I look at Max Holloway, I look at him as one of the best in that division. And if Volkanovski is here or here, it makes shit a difference to me. He's right there. So for me, I know styles make fights, but this dude, if Max Holloway is who I regard the best in the division and Volkanovski's here or here, it doesn't matter to me, right? Max showed that he is a better fighter than Ortega. Ortega for sure has gotten way better, for sure. I just don't know if, like, outstriking one person is enough to convince me that it's going to be a difference. You know what I mean? Like, and he hurt KZ a couple times. Volkanovski is not KZ. I've never seen Volkanovski even hurt. He's never been hurt. He doesn't get tired.
Fight. He got stung in the Holloway fight.
He was knocked down in the first round.
Second round. Okay, you're right.
He wasn't close to getting knocked out. He just got knocked out.
Well, but that's why I think you got part of me kind of factors that in a little bit, thinking that, you know what, he's looking a little bit more vulnerable on the feet defensively, at least.
Listen, I think you guys are going to see a one-sided fight. I don't think it's going to be here, but I think it's going to be here, one-way traffic the whole fight. 50-45.
I think he'll be winning it until possibly he's not, if that makes sense. Because look, Ortega's dangerous even on the feet. I know it's a submission game. Everybody's kind of factoring in that he's gonna, if he wins this fight, it's probably by submission. But I think his knockout power is something to kind of respect as well. So, I think he could land that kill shot either way or get the submission. I know that's kind of hard and it's kind of an uphill battle, but that's why, again, Volkanovski's a slight favorite.
If there's a finish on Ortega's side, it's gonna be submission. I don't see him knocking him out. I mean, I just don't. The likelihood of that is super slim to me. In my opinion, I think this is going to be one-way traffic. I don't think it's going to be a shutout, but I think it's going to be one-way traffic, and I think Volkanovski is going to be driving the bus.
James, let me ask you one more thing specific about this one. We know that there have been very strict lockdowns in Australia, right? And so Alexander Volkanovski, he's brushed that aside. He says that he's had a good training camp, but he hasn't had access to certain things that he normally would. You're shaking your head. No concern for you whatsoever.
Listen, those guys are fighters. You think for 1 second they're not training every day? You know what I mean? Those guys are fighters. You know what I mean? They train in a field somewhere. Those guys are going to train. You know what I mean? Like, those guys are going to,
because I see videos of Israel Adesanya, working out in his hotel room, and there's a guy behind him, like lifting like a.
Those guys are going to figure it out. I promise you that.
Not the way that you would ideally train for a 5-round title.
It doesn't matter. Those guys are all blue collar, man. That whole gym, what I love about that Gym City Kickboxing, those guys are blue collar fighters. Doesn't matter. They don't need all the bells and whistles. They're blue collar fighters, and they're going to get the job done. To me, this is not a concern. Man, have you ever seen Volkanovski show up out of shape? Never.
And I think he's very immune to that because of how professional he is. That's one of the things I said right off the bat. Like, this guy checks every box, so it's not a concern of mine. But I think it's worth mentioning, that he's training for a 5-round title fight in a situation in which, like, he can't get access to some of the things that he is used to having.
He's a blue collar fighter, and listen, if you guys think for 1 second that he didn't have enough to train at home, if you guys think for 1 second that he wouldn't have moved his training camp to Las Vegas or somewhere like that, you guys are crazy. That dude's a world champion. That guy's a world champion, and he has the UFC to give him access to whatever he wants. He would have figured it out if it was a problem. I can assure you, I'm not worried about this. There's 0% of me that's worried about if he got enough training in or not. He's a blue-collar fighter. That dude, Volkanovski, win, lose, or draw on Saturday, that dude's going to show up, and he's going to put on a fight.
We got to move on to the co-main event, but real quickly, Nick, 30 seconds or less, tell me where the total is at and your thoughts on the total.
Right now, the total is 4.5 over 35. So it's looking like it probably does hit the scorecards. And if it hits the scorecards, obviously, I think that would favor Volkanovski slightly as well. But 4.5 over 35. So there is that possibility, though. You're not seeing a high chalk number on the over. So there's that possibility, obviously, of the finish as well.
I feel like James is pulling off his bet the over shirt on this one. He's got that shirt.
No, bet the over.
Well, yeah, exactly. 5 rounds. I should put on the bet over shirt.
Bet the over. I love the over here. Both these guys are super durable, really tough. I don't see Volkanovski knocking him out. If there's a finish, it'd probably be on the Ortega side, but I don't think Ortega's wrestling is good enough to get Volkanovski down. I think this fight stays striking for 25 minutes. And although they're both dangerous, they're both also really durable. And I think you see, this is a classic example what we talk about almost week in, week out, where these guys settle into fights. And I feel really good it's going to go 25 minutes.
Guys, co-main event, when I checked it this morning, Valentina Shevchenko 15-1 to beat Lauren Murphy, who's coming back at plus 850. Do we even need to spend time talking about this fight? Nope. Can you bet this fight in any way? Is there a way to look at the total? Nick, I mean, let's go to you here first, because obviously this is your world. When you got a 15-1 favorite, is this just a completely just skim right by it, or do you take a look at some things?
You have to skip right by it, to be honest with you. No disrespect to Lauren Murphy. The market open, though, look, there was still value to be had at the opener. It opened minus 720, like market wide, which is kind of sick, to be honest with you. In Vegas, I opened it at circa at minus 1500. So I let the market kind of catch up to us because I knew it was going to eventually reach there, to be honest with you. I figured it would, and let the market catch up to us. Then I kind of bumped it up. And now we're at the point where we increased our betting limits to like 20K for that fight. So I tweaked it down a little bit because, there's always dog money coming in a spot like that. So I don't want to get too crazy with it. But yeah, to be honest with you, I've been betting Lauren Murphy all the way up to this title run, but I'm jumping ship. This is not the spot where she's going to get it done. And again, I've respected her. I put money on her. She's cashed in for me. She's a solid fighter. I think she's going to hang in there pretty well, at least early on, maybe the first round with her strength, with her physicality, with her toughness. I think she's going to have her moments in the fight, but as the fight progresses, it's going to be clear that she's not ready for that title.
So you gotta be like James. You gotta have the multiple accounts on your phone, and you gotta just be checking that opening line, right? Because when it opens, you can maybe get some value on Valentina Shevchenko. It ain't gonna last very long. James, is that about your take on it?
100%. Fight week, it always shoots up. I didn't play this up. What's the over under on this, Nick?
2.5 rounds, which is kind of a head scratcher for a ladies fight, right? A lot of times you would think that would definitely be a 4.5 rounds, but right now it's 2.5 over 18 at circa. So it's about 2.5 flat out there. So it's not expected to go much past 12.5 minutes.
I like the under here.
You like the under? Okay. Last fight we got to talk about, guys, of course, Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler. I will give my 2 cents on this before I turn it over to you guys. You got to bet Robbie Lawler or nothing here. I mean, I just don't think, like, if you believe that, Nick is going to come back and it's just going to be too much, taking a break from the sport. It seemed like his mind was well off the sport for a long time during that break. I just don't see how you bet Nick Diaz here and feel like you got anything other than a roll of the dice. I feel like either you're against the situation for Nick, so you're betting with Rob, or you're off it completely. That to me is sort of like the obvious move. Let's go with you first, Nick. I mean, this is a weird circumstance, obviously. 6 years away from Nick Diaz. What did you think about the opening line, and what are you expecting it to happen there?
Well, the opening line was kind of crazy, I think, because it was minus 250 for Robbie Lawler. And look, this is 2021, right? I love Lawler, again, former UFC champion. His rise to that title is one of the best stories ever, I think, because of how long his longevity in the sport and everything. So he's one of the greatest welterweights of all time. I love Lawler, but I mean, in 2021, again, he's kind of not in his prime. Let's say it like it is, right? So Nick Diaz, even despite him coming off that long layoff, I think it kind of did him a little good not getting that wear and tear for Diaz. And he's fresh. He's hungry to get back in there. But you're right. There's a lot of question marks behind this fight. So it's very difficult to bet it at the betting window. Right now, it's actually a pick'em type of fight. We have it Lawler minus 112, the comeback on Diaz minus 108. So it has shrunk from 250 all the way down to a pick'em type of fight, which I think is a little bit more fair because there's so many question marks around this fight.
James, Nick Diaz, man, off for 6 years. Robbie, like Nick mentioned, has not been on a good streak. He's been off as well. I will say, though, that Robbie has still been fighting really tough guys. I mean, he's been fighting Rafael dos Anjos, Neil Magny, who I believe has the most wins in welterweight history here, is tied with George St. Pierre with that. Colby Covington. I mean, he's been losing to very, very legitimate guys. Meanwhile, Nick, has been MIA. What do you think of the circumstances going into this one?
Well, not just losing, but he's also lost to guys that are stylistically tough matchups for him as well. Nick's not going to wrestle him. You know what I mean? So like this will be the type of fight that Robbie needs to win. For me, gosh, I can't. I'm just gonna sit back and watch this as a fan. I couldn't be more far away from this fight. The question marks on Nick Diaz, 6 years is too much. It's too far away. And now what happened? It's at middleweight now. Is that just somebody didn't want to cut weight or what?
Nick wanted it at 185. He brought it up during fight week.
Is that a weight cut issue, or is that just like a typical Diaz? I don't want to do this thing. I'm switching the game whenever it matters most.
Nobody knows, right? Is it Nick saying he can't make 185, or is it Nick, knowing that he was going to weigh in this entire time and that he would have the ability to just call it, and so that way he wasn't cutting weight during his weight camp? I look at it most likely speculatively. This goes back to what I said when I was teeing this fight up. I don't know how you can bet Nick Diaz. I mean, if now he's asking for 185 6 days before the fight, like
there's too many question marks, man. It's too much. You know what I mean? Like you got to stay away from this. I have a couple friends that are hammering Nick Diaz hard. I got a friend that has 20 grand on Nick Diaz, and I'm just like, you're an idiot. Not because I don't love Nick Diaz, but because you don't know what's he been doing. You know what I mean? You don't know what Nick Diaz has been doing for the last 6 years.
He can come to Vegas and put $20,000 on red and win or lose that money a lot quicker, and it's still about the same odds.
But even with Robbie, though, there's so many question marks on Robbie too, because he's been fighting guys that are nothing like Nick Diaz. He's been getting beat by top tier competition that are all stylistically tough matchups for him. These guys aren't out striking him; they're wrestling him. You know what I mean? And if they are out striking him, it's because they've already wrestled him. So it's just. There's too many question marks here. I got to stay away from this. However, I'm all in as a fan. I love this fight. I'm ready to watch it. So many question marks. I can't wait for it.
I tell you what, my pick would be Diaz, though, to be honest with you. I think he's going to win. I know what you guys said is right, but he's always training, doing the triathlons. He's not in bad shape. And I
actually agree with you, Nick.
So he's got to be, and of course, in training camp with Nate. I mean, he's been around fighting. He's never not around fighting. He coaches. So I think the ring rust is a thing. A lot of people like Dominic Cruz don't believe it's a thing. And I don't know. I mean, James, you would obviously know a lot better than me. But I think for some people it might affect, for others it might not, right? So I think it's hit or miss. I have no idea.
It's a thing, but not for them. So those guys are fighters, man. You know what I mean? Like, listen, ring rust is only a thing. Ring rust is not a thing if you go and you get after people. If you go out there and dude, I can promise you, Nick Diaz is not going to have ring rust. He's going to go out there and just do all this shit. Like, it's not going to be a problem. I can assure you. And then one thing we haven't mentioned yet is it's 5 rounds, not 3. These guys are cardio machines, man. These guys are cardio machines. Robbie has shown that the tank is not what it used to be. I like both these guys a lot. I do agree with you here, Nick, though.
I think that's why I'm picking Diaz a little bit. Look, he's calling all the shots. Hey, let's do this at 185. It's probably going to be at 185. Let's make it a 5-round fight. When in the history outside of a co-main event have you ever seen a 5-round fight? I mean, and it was, I believe, the first co-main event was Nate, wasn't it? That it was a 5-rounder too.
Yeah, it's a Diaz clause now. It's a non-title 5-round Diaz fight. Like that's right. All they're doing. I agree. I hear what you guys are saying. I don't necessarily agree with it. If I was a bettor, I still would be like, I just can't touch Nick Diaz.
Oh, I'm not betting on it.
I'm picking him.
One thing that would really make me nervous about betting Rob, though, if you are thinking about the other side, is Rob has long stretches where he's inactive. I mean, in the fight where he doesn't throw anything, and so he might not be getting hurt. He might not be getting hit by the Diaz punches, but if you're not throwing anything back, and that has cost Rob previously in his career. And so it would make me nervous over the course of a 5-round fight that I think could go the distance. Actually, I think this fight could go the distance because both these guys are durable. I mean, Rob hasn't really had a problem getting knocked out per se. So yeah, weird fight. If you do put some money on it, it will make an interesting fight even more interesting. But let's get to the best part of the show, and that is your guys' best bets. James, you got robbed last week. You didn't even get a chance to get on the board, so we'll go with you first. What are your best bets?
Listen, man, check my IG. I put 2-0 up. Don't discount my picks. I'll tell you who I really like this week, and I feel really, really good about this one. I say that now. I normally don't do this, but I'm tripling down on this one. And that is Omar Morales. I really like Omar Morales, and I like Jonathan Pierce as well. I think he's a good kid. I think he's shown a ton of improvement, and that, I will be honest with you, that scares me a little bit. Omar Morales has shown his ability to stop takedowns. He's with a good camp. He hits hard. He's a very, very good kickboxer. He attacks the body well. I just think his complete well-roundedness, I think he's going to be a better striker than Pierce and is going to be able to stop those takedowns. And I really like him here. Pierce is tough. There's no doubt. I just think stylistically, Omar Morales is a really, really tough matchup for him.
Okay. Tripling down. I'm sorry. I missed the line. What was the line at?
I think it's at 150 right now.
Yeah, it's around minus 150. Yeah, market wide.
Okay. Nick, what do you got for UFC 266?
I'm going to have several bets. I'm still finalizing some of them. So quick shout out to the UFC on the line crew. Check out UFC Fight Pass tomorrow for all of my bets. But right now I already made a bet on Cynthia Calvillo over Jessica Andrade. And I think there's some value there. I know Jessica Andrade in a title fight. She's a former champ, a lot of hype around her. She's a tank, like meaning that she's such a strong fighter, comes at you very like hard and fast and definitely a threat on the feet. I think more so than anything, but I think that Calvillo has the ground edge, and I think she's going to be able to get it to the floor eventually and win by submission or finish her on the ground as well. So at that price, it's just an eyesore to me. You have to take the value on Cynthia Calvillo, though. So that's where I went with it. You're getting plus 225, plus 220. I took it myself around that price range. It's going to drop to plus 200 or possibly below because there's going to be more sharp action taking that side. I know a lot of people are going to think I'm nuts because they think stylistically it might be a tough matchup. James is shaking his head. But again, we're betting for value. She's supposed to lose this fight. Calvillo's supposed to lose. But I think at the price, there's value to be had. So I'm going to take a stab at it. Got to go with Calvillo this weekend.
Certainly an interesting pick because, like you mentioned, I believe the average Joe Schmo out there, and I can't say that to me, it looks like a tough stylistic matchup. James, are you on board with Nick? Do you see a path for Cynthia to win this fight on the ground?
Cynthia's great. I think she's really good. I just don't think she's going to be able to get those takedowns, man. Andrade,
she get it to takedown though. You know, I mean,
What's
there's
that?
other ways to get that. She might not need to get the takedown to win this fight either. So
you think she's going to outstrike Jessica Andrade?
I think she can hop on her back. There's different ways, you know. I mean, she might be able to do it without exactly getting the takedown or a slip of a fight or an angle against the cage or something like that. So there's multiple ways she can possibly get this. And she's a little bit longer, right? Andrade does get tagged. I don't think she's better on the feet than Andrade. Don't get me wrong, but I do think Andrade is taggable. And I think that her length might actually work with her footwork around the outside. If she could stick and move on the outside a little bit and wait for her optimistic opportunity to get the fight to the floor, I think she can get it done there.
Jessica Andrade has shown to me that she's pound for pound the second best female in that division. She's held the throne for a long time in that regard. For me, like to me, it's Valentina, Andrade below. Right? Am I missing anybody?
Chukagian would be the next one who's had a lot of.
She TKO'd Chukagian.
Yep.
Yeah. She did.
I mean, in the first round, right?
Yeah. It was
easily.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I mean, there's a reason why this is at plus 225. I mean, Nick's not putting this in a survival pool. He's saying that
No. Hey, listen. I mean, stylistically, she's a great wrestler. A good. It's a tough matchup. I'm trying to think of the last person that's just not Valentina Shevchenko that's just taken down and dominated Jessica Andrade. And I can't think of the last person that's just really done well against her. Like, who's the last person to beat her that's not?
Well, let's not forget, this is not at 115. This is at 125, right? So again,
100%.
So
100%.
I mean, a lot of her fights recently have been at 115, except obviously she got the title fight at 125 as well. And again, so I think she's still settling into 125. And I think Calvillo, obviously she moved up as well to 125, right? From 115. So both of them have that similarities. I just think she's longer and she's way better on the ground. And I think a lot of people are underestimating Calvillo in this spot. And I think Andrade on the ground is where she's susceptible and she's vulnerable a little bit. So I think that's why I like Calvillo more than anything. And again, she's opportunistic, man. She's going to take the opportunity as soon as she gets it to hop on her back or get a guillotine choke or any kind of submission attempt. She's going to go for it.
Well, I like it. We got a triple down bet from James, a rare triple down bet, and then a value pick from Nick Kalikas. So we will see UFC 266. Great discussion, guys. And we'll be back to count our money next week and preview the UFC Fight Night cards. So thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.